Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ana de Jorge and I'm in charge of marketing department at the Storage Made Easy. Today I'm very excited to introduce you our presenters. Here we have Ian Malins, Sales Director EMEA at Concurrent Aquari Storage. Hello Ian.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. A little warm, but I'm doing well.
Good. And here we have as well Doug Soltes, Director of Product Solutions at the Storage Made Easy. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Anna.
Just a reminder, there will be a recorded version of this webinar available. So as well, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box. We will try to answer all of them at the end of the session. We will also provide our contact, of course, for us to continue any discussion after the webinar has ended. So today, Concurrent and Storage Made Easy are going to be addressing the challenges facing your enterprise around scale-out storage, collaboration, and data governance and compliance. So please, if you would like to introduce your respective companies, Doug and Ian, that would be great.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. So again, I am Doug Soltes from Storage Made Easy. I'm the Director of Product Solutions, and so it's my job to work with great solutions like the Aquari product from Concurrent. But why don't I tell you a little bit about Storage Made Easy, and I'll definitely make this brief. Storage Made Easy was founded in 2009. We first launched our enterprise file sync and share product in 2012. Since then, we've really evolved it. We now call it an enterprise file fabric. And the main reason is because we've added in things like governance, compliance, and we've really made a focus on object storage and how it applies to the enterprise. We have major customers using our enterprise solution, as well as a SaaS-based solution with over 300,000 customers hosted. We have that SaaS service running both in the US and in Europe. And so if anybody wants to try Storage Made Easy after this call, maybe kick the tires a little bit without any installation, I invite you to do that. But then, of course, contact us and we'll get you set up with the full enterprise trial. But enough about me. Hey, Ian, why don't you tell us about Concurrent?
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for that. Yeah, so, yes, my name's Ian Malins. I'm the Sales Director here for Concurrent in EMEA. Concurrent has been around for, would you believe it, 50 years. We were first founded in 1966. We've done a lot of work in real-time Linux, in open source technologies, and we've taken a lot of that technology and put it into a number of different product streams. One of the major product streams is our video distribution technology. We distribute video data for a large number of the cable TV customers in North America, in Europe, and the Far East. We have about 30 million subscribers, so 30 million people receive video to their houses using our technology. So behind that technology, we needed very strong and very fast storage technology. So in 2015, we developed an object storage-based technology. It's based on a Ceph protocol at the back end, and it delivers data out via object, file, and block protocols from this unified storage pool. So that's what we do. That's where we've come from. Some of the customers there: Vodafone, Virgin Media, Charter, Cox, Time Warner Cable. Some large customers based around the world.
And so, we're here today because, clearly people are having problems out there, and we want to address some of those problems. Clearly they're not using next generation storage, and they also have a problem with how they're handling their data. We see today that corporate data is siloed and fragmented, and what we mean by that is, enterprises and users are just distributing this data across a number of different platforms, some of which are approved by IT, some of which are not approved by IT. Maybe they have to do it because it doesn't scale, maybe because it doesn't have the collaboration tools they need. But at the end of the day, 58% of users are saying that they are using these types of cloud sharing tools. And this is a real challenge when you start looking at security and compliance. Anybody that's used Box or Dropbox, Office 365, knows that you have to use their storage. You don't have any type of encryption guarantees. When you share out a link, if that link gets out of control, other people can use it. And so this is a major concern for CIOs. In fact, 65% of them believe that there is unsanctioned file sharing tools out there. And this is a major problem in our view, and it's around the issue of them using legacy storage and the problems that legacy storage presents.
Yeah, so I've certainly come across it many times when IT managers sort of have this problem that the data sort of got out of their environment, out of their corporate environment, mainly because of users just want to be able to gain access to the data, and the older mechanisms of sharing it through legacy file servers just hasn't kept up to today's technology.
Yeah, let's see what we think this looks like. So, you've got an office. Your office has legacy file servers. They've got CIFS and NFS in them, and everything works fine. You've got your home directory. You're able to work. Now, maybe your users to share outside the company have to use email, but for certain size files that certainly works. But then you have the problem when they go home. When they go home, they're no longer able to work, and that doesn't really work in today's modern society. They still need access to their files. They need it via their web, their tablet, or their home system. And so the general way to continue working with a CIFS or NFS-based system, because let's face it, those were not built for internet storage protocols, is to VPN in, which can add complexity and complication. And so what we see often is the shadow IT, where the users decide to work around IT because they don't have the right tools, and they're moving their data into Box, Dropbox, Google Docs. They're sharing them out, and there's no auditing. There's no capability for IT to know what is out there or has gotten loose. And I think the worst example I've heard recently came from the U.S. In the U.S., I saw an article that a government contractor had put data on Amazon S3 and not properly locked down the AMIs, and that confidential data, I believe it was top secret, some of it, was publicly available, and even worse, they didn't encrypt the data.
Yeah. So you see that often. And then you get to the point is which files are the most up to date? Is it my legacy file server data is up to date? Is it stuff out on Box, Dropbox? You get this problem of where is the most up to date file, and it's generally because people just want access, and legacy file servers, VPNs, just make it so difficult to use.
To be honest, I've had that just with using email. Sometimes I email out a file and then I update it, but then somebody else has made changes to it, and there's just no collaboration and whatnot. So we want to solve that problem. We want to solve that problem for end users by doing a couple of things. The first thing is we want to give end users the ability to collaborate and share their data. And we want to do this in a way that's going to be compatible with IT. We want to add in what we call data governance and compliance. That's your encryption and those rich functions. And we want to help them move away from some of those legacy systems by enabling them to use a new, more scalable type of storage that has these types of protections in it. And I think, Ian, the major type of storage I keep hearing about, and the one I talked about earlier with S3, is object storage, and that's what you guys focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just give you a brief understanding of what object storage is. It's sometimes difficult to get people's head around it. So we've all worked with file servers for many, many years, and they work really well. When you've got like 1 million files, it's a nested directory of files and folders, and you can all understand what the data gets to, and it grows to maybe 50, 100 terabytes capacity. That's sort of fine. And once you get over that sort of number, it starts sort of a human readable file system becomes difficult to manage. Hundreds of millions of files, nested directories. Maybe I have more than one file server. It now becomes a difficult thing to manage. So what we're starting to see now is the rise of what we call the object storage technology. Now, object storage technology is slightly different. It's more of a machine-readable data. Basically what you do is when you put an object into the system, the system stores it and gives you back a UID. It tells you, I've put it away, you don't need to worry, I've stored it. What that does is it gives you the ability to have almost an unlimited number of things you can store. So an unlimited number of objects. The nice thing about object stores is they're built on scale-out architectures. So as you require another 100 terabytes, another 100 terabytes, you can just add nodes to it, and so it goes on, so it increases.
Yeah, it seems like there's two main features when you start talking about object storage. There's the ability to have these new object APIs, and these object APIs do exactly what you've got in the picture here, metadata. They add attributes. They're a flat namespace that can have billions of objects in what's called a bucket. But then there's also the way that the storage is architected, and I think that's really important because I've seen so many filers out there just throw in those object APIs without addressing the underlying storage, and you're still kind of left with the same problem.
Exactly. So some of the underlying features of an object storage is you need things like array decoding. Array decoding is a more modern version of RAID because we're now getting into storing petabyte of data, 2-4 petabytes of data. You may be storing over many, many years. So you need to have very good data durability, to be able to hold the data for long periods of time. So what we do here with the Aquari storage technology, our open exascale storage product, is we deliver a scale-out storage product built on varying sizes of data nodes. We have two of them here. One's a performance data node, which is 2 SSDs and 10 hard disks. We've got a capacity one shown in the diagram that's 6 SSDs and 30 hard disks. And you put them together and you build them a bit like a Lego set. You just scale it out. The software finds these other nodes, distributes the object storage across them, and provides it out as a multiple protocols. So we see here our file and object storage services node sits on the top of it and provides, S3, which is a typical protocol for objects, Swift, legacy NFS and CIFS for people who want to get out to that side of things. It can also support a number of different workloads. Now, we come from a video background, so this has been definitely designed to provide very high performance, many streams of high-def video. So that's something we do all the time. We work with SME on the sync and share. We also work with people on the backup and archive side of the events as well. And finally, you can also use it very closely into OpenStack virtual environments as well.
And so you've got this hardware, but Aquari is also, I believe, a software-defined storage system. So somebody could maybe test it with some existing hardware that they have, and then is there a way that can be scaled out and even maybe have heterogeneous nodes where they start small, grow big? Absolutely, absolutely.
So this technology, first started out as an appliance, so we built it on our own hardware, but we've now made the software available to run on other storage and CPU technology. You start with a small system here on the left, 4 nodes, simple switch, and then you can scale out to have multiple switches, multiple data nodes and sizes them. So you can have maybe very high capacity nodes for your archive data, but very high performance nodes maybe for your virtual environments. So it's very much a mix and match, and you can scale as you want.
And then, like you said, this is an object store at heart, and so it's scale out. It's the way it's storing the data is object storage.
Yeah.
But you also support the object storage APIs, which are going to traverse the internet and whatnot. But the issue that we see with storage made easy is often that devices today or applications today can't speak those object APIs. So it's great that you're offering CIFS and NFS. I see that as a complete necessity for some of these legacy applications. But when I take my cell phone home or when I'm out of the office, we need a way to collaborate across all those devices. And that's where Storage Made Easy comes in. The first thing we do is we can speak that S3 API. And again, that's an API. It's not like when you're doing a protocol with CIFS or NFS. It's not something that a human is really going to be able to do. So we're going to make that something that's easy for a human to understand. We're going to turn it into your normal files and folders. We're going to give permissions and security to it. And then we have a client literally for every device. We have clients for all of the mobile devices, Windows, Android, iOS, as well as a desktop client, which I'm glad to show you, for Windows machines, Mac, Linux, and of course a web browser, so you can use it absolutely anywhere. Even if you have a Chromebook, you're going to be able to access and work on your Aquari documents, even if you're using that S3 API.
So from what I see from a number of my customers, collaboration is sort of a key thing. How can I share my data, provide a single environment that my users can use? So
yeah, the first step is certainly how do I get my data onto all my devices securely encrypted, encryption in flight and at rest. And the second thing is how do I collaborate once it's there? Because collaboration is really the reason in a lot of situations why users are going to shadow IT. If we look at email again, email generally won't allow you to send a file over 25 megabytes. Maybe if you're lucky and you're using Gmail, you can do 50 megabytes. But I certainly have PowerPoint presentations that are closer to 100 megs because they have video. And so if I want to share that out, I'm kind of left with no other choice than to put it out there on the web, maybe on somebody else's service. And hopefully it's just one of my presentations, but you can imagine these could be media files that you don't want leaked as what Concurrent works with, or any other document. And so the collaboration in Storage Made Easy is going to give you the ability, no matter what storage you're working with, to have those ACLs, we're going to give you the ability to share securely, meaning that when I send a share out to somebody, I'm going to be able to see when they downloaded it. I'm going to be able to control the number of times that it's downloaded. I'm going to be able to do unique things. So when we're working with files and we keep updating them, I can keep multiple versions of them, but I can also comment on the file and the versions. Kind of like when you have a post in Facebook or some of these next generation Web 2.0 engines where people are used to being able to comment on something so that you can see how a document changed over time and who thought that maybe a picture or something needed to be changed in it. We have workflows where I can take a document, I can send it to approval to my boss, and while I am, it's now locked down. If the boss doesn't like it, I can get a comment back and change it, or it can get locked, and now that's essentially gold.
I think those are really important things. I mean, legacy file servers have worked really well, but they're just the newer way of working. The more distributed, we're all working from different places, home, car, office, wherever you need to be. So I think you need the collaboration tools, because we're not all sitting together these days working on one static document. So I think it's really important. But one of the other things a lot of my customers talk about is the governance and compliance side of things. How do I make sure that the data is secure, that we know where it's gone to, that I can audit who got it? That's
absolutely key. I mean, it starts with being able to sign on using enterprise authentication engines, whether that's LDAP, Active Directory, SAML. But then you need to take it a step further. And the first thing that we talk about today is encryption. So remember when I brought up that situation earlier where a government contractor had put data into Amazon and not encrypted it. So had they encrypted it and still messed up their AMIs, somebody could have downloaded those files, but they would hopefully be useless if they were using AES-256 encryption. So you need to encrypt your data in flight and at rest. I know a number of engines like Amazon can do encryption, with SSE, but if you have the credentials or you make it public, that really doesn't matter. So you need to be able to either utilize the encryption of the storage platform or encrypt at the application level. And a lot of applications don't encrypt, and that's where Storage Made Easy comes in. Our application will encrypt everything as the data is passing through it to make sure that legacy applications can still encrypt. Now, of course, you need to know how that data has been accessed. So if I share out files, I want to know, have they been downloaded? I want to know who shared them. If I'm editing files or putting in new versioning, I need a complete audit log. This audit log is accessible by API. We can also export it to Excel or PDF so that you can have your full compliance. Then you wrap that into what I was talking about before, the ability to share securely files outside of your office. This means that you can password protect a share. You can give it a limited time to live. So maybe if I send you a link and you don't click it within a day, it's just going to die. And I can limit the number of downloads so that if I send you a link to download a file, I can set it to only be used one time, and after that it's absolutely dead. And then you're going to wrap this in a set of policies. This is what we call cloud governance. And so one of the most popular policies is going to be some IP level controls. If I'm working in Europe and America, I want to make sure that somebody in say like, let's say China can't download my my file should they get that link.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last main feature, and this goes back to the compliance side. When we deal with healthcare, when we deal with legal hold and whatnot, they want a ability to version their files, to go back in time, to ensure that if something is deleted, it's in a trash can that maybe only the administrator can access. That's kind of what we call legal hold. And this is a really key function, especially when we start talking about modern day ransomware like the WannaCry. It could still affect us or your system in that it would see the share and it would go out and encrypt the first file there. But the ability to roll back to previous versions is key. When you look at a lot of SAN systems, what they do is they snapshot the entire thing in a moment in time. So you can imagine that if you're doing a snapshot every hour and users are working with their data, but it was also being encrypted, that you'd have a real mess at sorting that back versus using our system to roll everything back if needed, a single version. So we talked a little about the technology. So how do we get all this data into the object store? How do we actually try to grab it, pull it together from legacy file servers, from Dropbox, from all these places, such that people can get it into one place and start doing all these great things? Yeah, that's one of the key problems that people have today when they're using object storage. They go, okay, well, my system speaks CIFS, but I need to get this into object storage. Well, Storage Made Easy has the ability to migrate data, and we can migrate data from basically any of our 55 plus providers into Storage Made Easy with Aquari behind it. And this is really important when we start talking about two things. One is data that you control that you want to move into Aquari because it's a scale-out system. It's an object store, so it's going to have better cost efficiency. It's going to have higher levels of availability and durability. But it's also, when we were talking earlier, that maybe users have put data out in the cloud. And maybe this is sanctioned by the company, maybe it isn't. But we want to give them a way to bring that data back in. Or at least if they put the data out there and it's sanctioned by the company, we want to make sure that everything going out to, say, Google Drive is encrypted so that if somebody inappropriately creates a share from Google Drive, none of those files are of any value to you. And then there are also a number of connectors out there for data that really does belong in the cloud. So, like, let's say my company is using Salesforce, as most companies do. What we do is we put our sales presentations in Salesforce so that the sales team can download those webinars, presentations, maybe even pricing sheets. And so it belongs in Salesforce. But what happens is, those salespeople, they pull it down. They start emailing out. They get versions all over the place. So Storage Made Easy is able to connect to Evernote, SharePoint, Salesforce, so that you have that single pane of glass and you're able to see all of those files. And now you can do two things. One, you can start sharing links, but the second one is we can create an archive or a backup of that data that lives in the cloud and probably should live in the cloud on Aquari, so that should you ever choose to leave Salesforce, you've got a backup of it. Or what if Salesforce goes down? I mean, it's certainly happened before, and you want to make sure that your sales team is still able to send out links to those PDFs. So we've got you covered there. And when you do something like this, when you migrate or you connect the data into Storage Made Easy, we're going to give you your users, besides just a single pane of glass to see all of it, another unique function. And this is the ability to search across everything. So no more, did I email that out? Where's the newest copy? You have one copy, and it doesn't matter whether it's on Aquari, CIFS, Salesforce. You're able to do a search across all of these platforms. It just really makes their lives a lot more convenient. But instead of me talking about all this, I'd really like to kind of show this to the end users.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to do now is introduce my my colleague Ian Phillips. He's going to be doing the demonstration of the technology. First of all, we're going to go through and talk a bit about the environment, what we're actually running this on.
Sorry, my fault. All right, so I got a little excited there and switched to the demo controls first. Why don't you tell us, Ian? So, and again, to avoid confusion, we have two Ians here.
Yeah.
Ian, why don't you tell us what we've set up for everybody to see?
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, I'm the other Ian. Yeah. In today's demonstration, we've got a lot of the systems we've been talking about in this webinar. So we've got users and user authentication. In this case, we're using a standard Windows Active Directory platform. Using obviously the SME, in this case the virtual appliance. That's connecting via a number of agents to Aquari and to some legacy storage. We don't actually have a Dropbox connection anymore, do we, Doug? Are you connected to Dropbox?
I did connect to Dropbox, so we will be able to demo pulling data from Dropbox back into Aquari and from a CIFS backend.
Brilliant. So, yeah. So we got just to summarise, we're going to look at Doug will show the SME side of the house shortly, and right now I'm going to look at the Aquari side of the house. So if
yep. So now I will pass you the baton. Sorry about being a little overzealous there.
There you have.
All right, Ian, and in a second, I am seeing your screen, so please proceed.
All right, okay. What we have here, I'm connected into a small Aquari cluster, as my colleague Ian mentioned before. Yeah, we can scale from very small to very large, if not even larger, and as we can see from the user interface at the moment, the cluster's reporting back. It's healthy. It's only been up 24 minutes because I booted it this morning for the demonstration, and it's sitting there telling me that it's healthy and working. What we're going to look at today, really, without going through all of the screens and a lot of them, is the object services side of the house, key to this presentation. So we currently support, as Ian has already mentioned, both S3 and Swift. I believe Doug's going to connect through the S3 gateway shortly. So if we look at that, we have the ability to go in and manage the users, create users and the like. So we have here a couple of S3 users, one of which Doug's using for his demonstration purposes, and beneath that, and I think Doug mentioned it earlier as well, we have the ability to create and manage buckets, and buckets are the technology used behind S3 at the storage layer to hold data. So in this case, we're looking at using the Aquari S3 SME webinar, which has got data in it, a number of objects and a capacity, and that data is actually held within a number of data nodes. We are looking at not only a number of data nodes, but also looking at pools. If I go in, quickly drop into the pools, pool status, that's what I'm looking for. So the object systems divides data into pools. So if we look down towards the bottom of the screen, we can see the RGW buckets pools. That's the actual pools for holding the data. Right. So if we flick back to the presentation.
You got it. I will pull back control. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
All right, so hopefully you're seeing my slide. And so one thing we didn't talk about there when we were talking earlier is that the Aquari platform, you've already loaded data into it, and you've loaded that in through the S3 API. You know, Storage Made Easy definitely has the capability to look at existing data out there and to kind of suck it in. And we can do file in, object out, or object in, file out, meaning that if you put data in directly to Aquari via their S3 API, we would be able to show that graphically or visually to the end users and vice versa. Now, the only time that this is going to break is if you tell us, which you probably will for your governance and compliance, that we need to encrypt everything before it makes it to Aquari. Then in that case, you can still put object in and get file out, but if you put file in, when you pull that object out, it's going to be encrypted. Now, we do have a encryption piece that you'd be able to decrypt that if you knew the proper keys, but I think that's a story for a different demo. What I'm going to be showing today is first the ability to add that cloud provider. So I want to add Aquari into my existing system. And so I'm going to, again, they're based on a Ceph-based technology. I'm going to use S3. We could use other protocols, but S3 is really one of my favorites out there because of its ability to scale, to deal with latency, and extremely high concurrency of users. And so when we pull this data in, what you're going to see is the same view, whether you're looking at it through Aquari, like Ian just showed, or whether you're looking at it through Storage Made Easy. So with Storage Made Easy, I'm going to see those same buckets, or I'm going to have the ability to create a bucket. I'm going to pull that in, and then we'll go through and look at the actual storage. So if you give me 1 second, I am going to go ahead and pull up my demo environment. All right, and so if I can just minimize this GoToMeeting panel. So is everybody seeing my screen? They should be seeing 2 different shares that I have previously set up for our demo. I currently have Dropbox set up, and I currently have Swift set up. So I'm assuming that you just purchased your Aquari system, and you currently have data out there. Maybe some of it's in the cloud, and some of it's in your normal shares. And like other systems that you've worked with, we have the ability to tell you what type of file it is. You can see that these are Word documents. I can preview these quickly in a little preview window over on the right. I can scroll through. I can launch this into a new window. All the things that you normally expect for a collaboration-based system. And again, I'm doing this all through a web. If I didn't want to do this through the web, again, we have the same tools for Android iOS, Mac, Linux, Windows. And so if I was to pull up a Windows desktop right here, I have the same user mapped as a share here. So I have my S drive. Again, I can go into my docs. This is my CIF share. And maybe this time if I look in logos, I've got these logos. I can open this one up. This should be a Storage Made Easy logo. So you're going to get the same pane of glass no matter where you're looking, global search and whatnot. But as I said, the thing we want to do is to pull in Aquari storage and start migrating or moving some of these documents to Aquari storage. And we're going to treat all storage the same in that there are no functions that you're seeing me do right here that you won't be able to do against that Aquari system. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. And again, I currently have 2 providers for my storage. Now this can be mapped by the administrator or by users, depending on how you set your security. We're a fully multi-tenant system, as is the Aquari system, so this can host multiple enterprises if you happen to be an ISP. And I'm going to add in my Aquari storage. So I'm adding a provider. Again, we're going to use the Ceph provider. And I really only have to answer 4 questions. And again, this could be done by the administrator. What do I want to call it? What is the API endpoint? And the access key and the secret key. And so, like all good managers, I keep my secret keys in a password system. And so now that I put in my credentials, it says, well, I'm looking out there, and I can see that 2 buckets have already been created by you. Thank you, Ian. And I also have the capability to create more buckets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that I actually want to use the one that we called Aquari SME Webinar. And what our system's doing right now is it's going out and it's walking that namespace. And the beautiful thing about object storage is that it's a flat namespace. So when you walk it, it's extremely quick. A normal S3 command for this storage is going to return 1,000 items per listing. And so you can see I'm already completed. Now, again, it was pretty small. I had 19 items. But it would be just as fast if I had 10,000 or maybe even 1 million objects. And so now when I return to my file manager, I'm now going to have a 3rd type of storage. And that 3rd type of storage is going to be the My Aquari, because that's what I chose to name it.
Yeah, I think this is really, really powerful, because now what you're doing is you're giving your users one screen to be able to look at lots of different types of data. Because the problem you find is if, for example, you know you've got a lot of data sitting out on Dropbox and you really want to get the data in or stop users using it, if you just get rid of the Dropbox capability from your users, they'll go and find somewhere else to go and put their data, and you haven't solved the problem. You've just moved it to a different destination.
Absolutely. And as I'm looking at this, I can see that you've already populated this with a number of data. I don't know how well this video is playing, but since you guys are a video company, I definitely appreciate you preloading this with one of my videos. I'll stop Absolutely. That. But
it could have been worse, Doug. It could have been one of my videos.
I bet you I can find this in one of the folders that are pre-populated. But again, you're going to get that structure that humans are used to. We're going to change that flat object storage namespace into something that looks like folders and files. We're going to give you the ability to share out these folders or files or create team folders with your own internal departments. So the next thing that I wanted to demonstrate was, if I want to go ahead and pull data in. So if I want to pull in data from CIFs, all I need to do is click and drag it. And I am now copying my documents folder from my CIFs into the Aquari system. You can see that I've started a task there in the background. Now I could have also done a move, so there's a button as well. Had I wanted to move the logos, I've got a button right here to move my storage, as well as we have a full import engine. And so we've got this feature right here called Cloud Migration. If I want to just absolutely, say, pull in everything from Box or Gmail or FTP into the Aquari-based system. So now that I have data in the system, as you saw, I can edit it, I can open it, I can do a number of different features. So even though I'm looking at this via the web right now, if I was to double-click it, we have a feature called Cloud Edit, and I'm on a Mac. So I showed you a second ago, Windows. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull down that file and open it right in my native Word. And so I'd be able to make a change to this. Hello, team. And when I hit save, I'm not saving back to my Mac, I'm saving back to the cloud. And during this time that I was doing that, the file is going to be locked. So we should be able to, if I refresh right here. Oh, I didn't catch it quick enough because I already closed it, but we locked it. And now what you can see is that I've got this little 1 right here, and this 1 indicates that I've got a previous version of my file. And so the previous version is the one without the hello. And if I need to, I can make this the current version. I can delete these versions. I can roll them back. And when I delete files, if I move this to trash, what we're going to see is a little notification here that says that this has been moved to trash, and that again, going back to governance, the capability for legal hold and whatnot, this could be put into an administrator's trash can such that I am, as a piece of malware or a disgruntled employee, unable to really go out and delete everything. And that's kind of the benefit behind object storage today, especially the Aquari system. Maybe if you talk for a second about your erasure coding and your replication, the ability to have extremely durable data and to protect multiple sites against outages.
So yeah, so with erasure coding, it's really a key part of the functionality within the system. Allows you to, it stops you protecting disk failures. What it goes to is about loss of objects. We have millions and millions of objects in the system, and the way that erasure coding works, it spreads that data across many different nodes and objects within the system with a redundant amount of data. So there's a number of bits of data you can lose. So I can lose one physical drive. The system works out when what objects have lost part of their RAID resilience, and will move that data to somewhere else in the system. What it allows you to do is to have a data that can be rebuilt before the actual physical drive is actually turned up on site. So I've got a drive that's gone wrong. It's going to be coming to site in the next day or two, but I want the system to recover that data, put it onto other parts of other disks to make it so it's protected. So RAID is really, erasure coding is sort of like the new version of RAID. It's a superset of RAID, and gives you a much better durability. You can specify how many data blocks to how many parity blocks you have, so you can give it more and more protection depending on how valuable your data is, and so it gives you an ability to tear things up and down. So I want a system, maybe I want to go for mirroring, because this data is really, really important. I want to make sure it's very high performance, it's mirrored. Other ones I want to go for a erasure coding which has 5 data blocks and 1 parity, so that's a much lower overhead for the erasure coding.
And that's what's going to allow you, using our system with Aquari, to achieve the same type of durability that Amazon's promoting out there, whether that's 9 nines or 15 nines. In general, far higher than what most people are achieving on their current NAS systems.
Absolutely. I mean, these days with storage systems getting much bigger, it's quite easy to work out with standard RAID 5 how long it is until you actually physically lose data. Because you lose one disk drive, you go into a repair situation, data slows down as it's going through its rebuild. If you lose a second drive, that's it, you've lost data. So with erasure coding, it's done on a per object basis, if you like. So objects are immediately rebuilt, and it uses all disks and all nodes within the systems to recreate that data. So it's not just one RAID volume that's being rebuilt, it's all disks, all nodes are working to actually build the system and get all data back protected again.
So the last thing I'll demo here, now that we have our data in the Aquari system, we pulled it in from the SIF system. We could have also pulled it in from Dropbox. So I have this docs folder. Maybe I want to share this document out. So I can click the share button. I can share it by URL. Again, this can be locked down by the administrator. I can share it via email. If you're doing things like Outlook, we have a plugin for that. But I'm going to create a normal secure URL. I'm going to set it to expire in 1 hour. I'm going to limit this to 2 downloads, just in case somebody watching the webinar tries to download it before me. And you know what? Just to protect it, then maybe what I'll do is I'll put a password on there, although my password's password, so not super secure. And so if I generate a link, and you can create multiple links for systems, I can copy this link right here. And if I now open up a different browser, or maybe Chrome in incognito mode, I'm going to be prompted by a screen to enter in a password to access that data. And if I download it, I've got the Aquari webinar document. If I was to do that a second and a third time, the third time, that link would no longer be valid and I would be denied access. So this is just part of the story of adding governance and compliance to your overall system. Encryption can be handled by the end users, or in this environment right here, I have it handled at the administrator level, which essentially says all data going in and out of the system will be encrypted both through HTTPS and at rest through AES 256. And then the audit logs are not something that I can show right now as an end user. What I've done is I've locked my end user down. Although you can see that I have a lot of functions, I haven't given myself the ability to go through and actually explore those audit logs, because sometimes you need to ensure for like the new GPRD that you redact data, or you control who can see what's been actually done. Absolutely everything in the system is controllable, and really easy to use interface. Same exact features and functions. If we go back to Windows, if I go back to Windows and I right-click one of these, I've got my cloud actions right here. And if I do share by link, I'm going to get a very similar screen where I'm able to create a link that expires after a certain time, is password protected, or limited the numbers of downloads. So at this point, I think we're getting a little bit short on time, and so I will flip back to our presentation. And I'd really like to show everybody more about Storage Made Easy. Obviously, if you contact us, we are glad to do a demo. We're glad to take you through a number of the other features in the system. Obviously, in 10 minutes, it's very hard to demo the richness of what we can do with API-based systems. As I talked about in the beginning, we have a SaaS service both here in the Europe and in the US. And so if you just want to kind of kick around the tires, go sign up for a free account. When you sign up for a free account, we'll give you a little bit of storage, but we'll also allow you to map a provider or two so that you can just kind of see how this would work. If you like the way that works, please contact sales. We can give you an enterprise trial, and the enterprise trial is going to be on-prem. So we're going to give you a VM image that can be for Hyper-V. If you're, say, doing OpenStack. I'm sorry, not OpenStack. If you're doing Microsoft, it could be KVM for OpenStack. We have a VMware image. Whatever you need, but we can run this.
Does the appliance has your database in there, so it does. That's where all the smarts live around the database.
Yeah. So that's one thing I didn't talk about. So I really like that the Aquari system is scale out, and I didn't really talk about how we're deployed. But generally, when somebody's going to deploy this on site, we're scale out as well. So you'd start off with a single VM. You'd run it. Maybe you have 100 or 400 or 500 users. But if you want high availability, or you're going to have 100,000 users, as some of our telco clients do, what you're going to want to do is scale out the web front end. We can also scale out the back end database. So it's fully scale out to match the storage as well.
And that's where it holds all the data about when you're searching through the object store and getting all the information. It pulls it into the database. And
yeah. So we have
all the queries and searches from there.
We have a database, and we even have what we call deep search. And I didn't really show that in the demo. But I would have been able to search for that document across all of that storage. If it showed up in multiple places like Windows, it would list them all. One of my favorite features is you can say, show me where this is, and it actually walks you through the storage to find where it lives. But we have a additional feature that I didn't really talk about, which is called deep search. And deep search allows us to actually search the content inside a document. And so instead of just searching for the document name, you can look for a Word document that contains certain words, or a PDF, or something like that. We just have a huge number of features, and I certainly invite anybody to visit our website, contact our sales, and learn more.
Okay.
So how do we contact Aquari? to get a setup of this great storage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so for more details about the Aquari storage, you go to www.aquaristorage.com. That's a website specifically built for talking about this technology. You can email or phone me at the number. So the technology can be both an on-prem solution, so you can buy it, you can put it into your own solution in your own data center and use it for supplying multi-workloads. It's not just for sync and share, as say, it can also be used for much higher performance type technologies, for video, for high performance computing, that sort of things. If you don't want it to be physically hardware, you can use software and software defined, and we can run across a number of different platforms. So that's how you actually get to see us. We can provide the data, either file systems, as you've seen, objects, as we talked about a lot here, and also you can get out to block data as well. So it gives you a great flexibility on how to actually use the data.
So at this point, let's take some questions. If you haven't typed your question in yet, please go ahead and type one in the question box. It looks like we have a handful of them already. And so we'll start with the first one. The first one's for you, it sounds like. What is the minimum capacity of an Aquari cluster?
Okay, so an Aquari cluster is built up of a number of data nodes. So you need a minimum of 4 data nodes. That gives you the ability for it to have failover, self-healing, and that sort of thing. The minimum capacity of our data node is 20 terabytes. So we get to an 80 terabytes is the raw configuration. And then when you add RAID on top of that, it comes down to about 50 terabytes. Is sort of the minimum usable capacity. Now, people think, oh, that's a lot of storage, but if we look at what's out there in the way of file servers, you can quite quickly pull that sort of amount of data into your environment. We also have a number of other customers who can provide this as a hosted service as well. So if you just wanted a smaller amount, then we can do a hosted service as well.
The next question appears to be from me. It says, if Aquari offers CIFS, why can't I use that instead of the S3? And to be honest, there's no reason you can't. So as we talked about earlier, Aquari supports a number of protocols: CIFS, NFS, S3, Swift, and I believe you have a block or no?
Yeah, we support RAIDOS.
RAIDOS.
As the blocking version. And in fact, not only do we support RAIDOS, we actually got the SME file fabric certified with RAIDOS.
With RAIDOS. And so that's kind of the thing I mentioned. We could connect to you through any of those 5 APIs. And there's from our point of view, very little difference between doing those. The reason that we promote the S3 is a couple of fold. One is the object storage APIs are very advanced, and they have neat features in them that CIFS and NFS don't, such as versioning, temporary URL. And one of the neat things we can do with a temporary URL, again, I noted that the Storage Made Easy system is completely scale out, but if you're talking to CIFS and you're on your phone or your desktop away from the office, it means that the data has to go through our web front end, which again is fine because it's completely scale out. But if your Aquari storage system, if that S3 API is publicly exposed on the internet, we can do neat things where our client bypasses us and sends the data directly to that, because S3 and Swift API were both absolutely made to run over the internet. And they're really good for a highly concurrent number of users in the throughput. And so that's the reason why during this talk I really promoted S3. But of course, we'd be glad to connect you on any of those 5 interfaces.
Yeah, so we've used CIFS and NFS for other applications. So we see people supplying video backups, things like using CIFS and NFS. So sometimes they're more of a LAN-based protocol for a specific application, but it's just that we give you a number of different options here to be able to use the storage.
I have a question. It seems from what I have up on the screen right here that we didn't talk about. It says the other legacy protocols, WebDev, FTP, SFTP protocols. It says, what are those? Are those other ones you can connect to? And the answer is kind of twofold. We can connect to an FTP system or SFTP as a backend storage and suck in the data from them as well. But the other neat thing is that Storage Made Easy, besides having that web interface and besides having the tools that would run on Mac, Linux, Windows that's going to give you that drivelet or that mount point, we also can turn that Aquari storage into FTP, SFTP, FTPS, or web dev. And I know that when you're talking about media, FTP is still kind of alive and well.
It's surprising, really is. I mean, I haven't seen FTP for a long time. But you go there, and for a lot of people who want to push video, sort of ingest, if you like, sending video to a broadcaster. A lot of the transfers is FTP or SFTP to get the data in there. So it seems to be still alive and used quite heavily.
You'll also see in a lot of the enterprise video spaces, and certainly a lot of our customers, where they've got media asset managers moving data through the workflows, that they're actually moving data ingest into the solution through FTP. They might be moving it out to CIFs for certain users and certain applications, and then moving it onto the object for longer-term retention. And the query is designed ideally for that, because we've got all the connections, and obviously with the SME piece in front of that, they've got all the auditing, all the tracking, so it's a natural integration.
Yeah. Yeah. The next question is, can I use the Storage Made Easy SaaS service with Aquari on-prem? And that's a neat question. The answer is yes, but now we are going to limit your protocol. So, obviously we'd like to be close to the Aquari. You've got that data gravity, but just like we showed here, where we've got this all running in a lab on-prem, and we reached out to the Dropbox cloud, you can absolutely do the opposite. So you could be running us in the cloud or using our SaaS service to kick the tires. You can have Aquari, you can have all of your media files on there, and we are going to limit you. You would not be able to use CIFS or NFS or Rados, over the internet, but you would be able to connect to S3 or Swift and do everything that we demonstrated here, or do secure shares. And I'm hoping I'm reading into this question a little bit, but maybe you guys can clarify more, because you work with media more than I am. Do the media folks out there have a hard time sharing their files securely and getting them out? I know that that Sony hack was a big deal. What do they use when they need to get something to somebody for rendering or editing?
Well, traditionally, if it's reversing the web, FTP.
Okay.
Yeah, or even SFTP to secure it. It tends to be the more when it's in-house and it's being moved around the various departments for rendering, for editing, for QA, and when the workflows dictate that it sits on CIFS for this team or object for another team, that's when it sort of stays on-prem. But certainly for our large customers, when they're receiving data from the originators, it tends to be across one of the FTP protocols.
See, I think the marrying up the collaboration capabilities of SME with the video and broadcast environment would be really good, because it will then give them the ability to say, well, this is a video, look at it, comment on it, edit it, do whatever you need to, and so we can collaborate on it. A lot of the time, these tools haven't been available for broadcast industries in the past, and I think bringing this into them will give them the ability to start using the newer collaboration techniques, but into the video world, which I think would be a very powerful new set of tools for them to use, to be able to say, here's a link, go and look at this video, see what you say, tell me what you think about it, and then we can collaborate on your feedback. So I think putting the two together is going to be really powerful for broadcasters, for post-production editing type environments, those types of places where they have to do a lot of manipulation of the same video, same content, same audio track, same subtitles, all that things has to happen very quickly. So how do you get this collaboration to happen? So I think this could be a really good set of tools to put together for this customers.
Yeah, one thing I didn't demo is the ability on like a Word document to do what we call web team edit. So that's very similar if you use Office 365 or Google Docs, that multiple people can be editing and working on a document and collaborating at the same time. So it's kind of the next generation where, normally in Word, if I open a document, I have it locked. And that's certainly what I did in my demo, but we have the capability of doing the web team tools. The next question, I'm probably going to have to read into it, because it says, what hardware can we use, ? And then it says Dell, HP, Supermicro, ? So I don't know if this means what hardware can they bring to the table, or if they're asking you what hardware you've certified and whatnot. But from Storage Made Easy point of view, it's really simple. We like to run it as a virtual machine. You run your virtual machine in any hypervisor on any platform you want. For Aquari, maybe get into, you'd said it was software defined.
Yeah, so software defined. So we initially started out as an appliance. So it's very much, it was built for, we used underlying technology was Supermicro hardware, and we used Mellanox switches to provide the actual interconnection. So that's what we initially started out with. We've now developed it to be able to use HP technologies, so the DL360, 380 range of technologies, and also into the Apollo range. We're also looking quite closely at the Dell side of things. So as we grow a number of different customers who want this technology, we're certifying different types of technologies, and the real reason for that is that people expect a certain level of performance, and if we just throw it onto anything, we need to work at the performance you're going to get, its failover characteristics, those sort of things, because there's a number of trade-offs between a number of SSDs to hard disks to get you the performance and the latencies and that sort of things. So that's what we do when we go through and do this certification, and then we make this sort of list of vendors available for people to go and choose between, and then we can work with them as they need.
Yeah, I think that's key. So I've certainly been to OpenStack a number of times, and I've seen people roll out their own stuff and whatnot. And sometimes people save too much money. I mean, at the end of the day, using your platform, you're going to save a ton of money versus the traditional guys out there, right? The EMCs and whatnot of the world. But I've certainly heard war stories from people that tried to save too much money, and really, you have to have that level of performance, and that's where I think your engineering and certification comes in.
We try to help people get to a good level of performance, a good capacity point, a good price per terabyte, because those are all important. But doing it such that you don't, get yourself into trouble and get into too small a system with too low performance. So it's sort of a balancing act, and we help people both what they've got and what they want to put it onto, and what our blueprints say is the best way to go, and we sort of try and work with that.
Guys, we are very sorry, but we want to be respectful of our attendees' time. So I can see a few more questions coming out. We will make sure that we'll reply them by email. It will be as well the recorded version available. So in a few days' time, we will be sending all the information across all of you. So thank you very much.
I understand, Anna. Yep. Well, it's been great talking with you guys today.
Yeah, it's been really good.
I hope everybody found this informative.
Yep, very good.
All right, well, to everybody out there, have a great day, afternoon, morning, evening, or night.
Everything.
All right,
Thank you very much.
you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye. Bye.